Hi, welcome back to another episode of Renaissance Faith.
Where we are renewing our faith through real conversations.
This Renaissance Faith episode is entitled Bless Your Heart. And we entitled that this topic just to kind of encompass a subcategory of gossiping. In church, at times, we often will pray for each other and be each other's support system. But we really wanted to zone in on uh, a fine line between gossiping and supporting each other and praying for one another. This topic is going to kind of dive into any experiences that we may have had where someone may have shared something, overshared something unintentionally or intentionally, and may have disguised it under the umbrella of, helping someone out or being a shoulder to cry on, and how that can have a negative impact on church community, getting a close bond relationship with people in your church home, and how that can have a negative impact on the Christian experience as a whole. So, ladies, have you ever encountered or maybe been a spectator to someone that may have gossiped to someone else or to yourself under the guise of, bless your heart, helping someone out?
Or yeah, like even like you said, oh, we have to pray for so and so, like
Right.
because they've got some drama going on in their family. And it's like, is that really you genuinely praying for that person because you care about their situation and you want to help them move through it positively? Or is it like that was your nice way of saying, oh, here's what we're going to talk about and open this story that does not belong to me or is not one for me to share? Oh no,
Yeah.
did I freeze?
No, you're good. You're kind of low though, Jessica.
Am I?
Maybe you're not close to the mic. I don't know.
Like, oh, my volume?
Oh yeah, yeah. You sound good now.
Okay.
We'll cut this out.
Were you done, Corinne? Because you didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've also been, I'm sure I've been the subject of gossip before because who hasn't, right? But also I've been around where people have gossiped. And also I have gossiped before in the past. It wasn't until more recently, within the past couple years, that I started to feel more convicted about it because before I didn't really see anything wrong with it. I actually loved gossip blogs. Um, at one point, I thought I was going to start a gossip blog. Like I just, it was so entertaining to me. And again, I wasn't feeling convicted about anything wrong with it, and I wasn't in my word enough to realize that it's actually really not something we're supposed to be involved in. And in the Bible, it talks about how not only are we not supposed to gossip, but we shouldn't be hanging around people that gossip either, right? And so definitely there's been times when I've been actually in more recent months, I've been around a certain circle and felt immediately, or like I've been on the phone with someone and like they immediately want to go into talking about someone's business, and it just feels weird. Like it just feels like, and then I'll try to like change the subject because it's just like this is all we have to talk about. I've outgrown that space. um And, it's some people do like to, I think people know that it's wrong sometimes, and they will, like you said, phrase it differently, like that they really genuinely are concerned about someone, but then it's really just an excuse to like tell their business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that can definitely be like that disguise of like, oh, I'm just trying to help them. It's like I feel like it's the degree of what you're sharing and the if there's malice behind it.
Well,
Or
yeah, it's like the why. Like, is
right.
it
Why are you sharing this information? And it's important to understand that if that person has not told you to share that information, that it shouldn't be shared with other people. Despite if you want to pray for that person individually, by all means go ahead, but to share details about someone's issues or concerns or prayers, I don't think that is necessarily needed. I totally believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe like the intention behind the person delivering the message. And I understand things may happen, but it's like, how often is this happening? And is there dialogue between you and that person that's saying, like, hey, this is between you and I, you, me, and God, I'm not ready to share this information. Like, there should be some kind of respect behind that. And I think that when people are coming to you, it's hard enough for them to divulge information to another person, and when you betray that trust, it's making it even harder for them in the next instance that this may happen to do that, to, trust another person, which, evidently will harm the person, because now they feel like they need to hold on to that information. They need to suppress that information. They feel like they don't have people that are there to support them or uplift them, especially when it's Christ based. Like that's doing more damage than you think it may be, to whoever you're sharing the information with. And it's like, how much information do you really need to share or divulge? Like, this person's going through XYZ, we're going to pray for them, and then leave it at that. It doesn't need to be like, oh, they're behind on their bills, they are in debt, they're filed for bankruptcy. Like, if that person shares that, cool, let them share that. But it's not for you to go into detail about like why they're, needing all this.
Right. And if you're like genuinely praying for this individual, God knows what they need. And you can just ask that he provide the support that they like are in need of right now. Like, you really don't need to go into all of the details, and if that's truly what you're going for.
For sure, for sure.
Random, maybe tangent, but how often do you experience gossip in the workplace?
I wouldn't say too much. I feel like I kind of stay out of that unless it's brought to me. I don't gossip for sure because I don't really have friends at work, to be honest. So like there's nothing for me to divulge. I do have one person that's kind of like, they're not my friend, but they're my work colleague that we have a close relationship with, that they'll let me know if someone got laid off, and like, hey, XYZ, you're not going to be hearing from this person. And I'm just like, oh, good to know. But intimate details surrounding, like, I'm just like, next topic. I remember they were trying to tell me that two of my workers, not workers, my associates, two of my associates may be dating each other. And I'm just like, I don't think that's the case, because I really didn't think that was the case. But he's like, oh, I overheard them talking at lunch. And I was just like, so you're getting this information from overhearing another conversation? It's like, that's the point of gossip. Like, you're hearing secondhand information and then you're sharing it with someone else. It's like being diluted and transformed as it gets from mouth to mouth to mouth, and it's like, it's not credible anymore. And even if it was credible, like, that's not something I want to hear. And I don't believe it unless they bring it up to me themselves or I witness it. I'm like, I'm not interested in it, because it just gives you more problems. And it's just not necessary. Like, who am I going to share this information with? No one. My friends don't want to hear about this. you know but yeah, for sure have witnessed that at work. What about you, Jessica?
No, definitely. Yeah, at one of my jobs, it's like constant, and I really just try to either walk away, like, and do something else, or I'm just like quiet if I can't necessarily like escape the situation. I don't give anything back to it. And
Mhm.
it's so funny because I have a coworker in particular, and I know that she goes around and tells everyone's business, because she tells me people's business, and her and I are not close. So it's like,
Mm.
if you're doing that, I know, that's why I don't tell her anything that I don't want to get out. I do not tell her, right? But when she's telling me these stories, she's always looking to me to like to give into the, to give more into the conversation. And I'm
Mhm.
just kind
Mhm.
of like, oh,
Trying to solicit your feedback so that it
exactly.
won't be just you.
Right. So now I'm a part of this. And so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That has happened to me at work, and I think it's low-key a trap because sometimes
Definitely.
it just seems like very iffy. Like, why are you like trying so hard to get my feedback on this? Like, I had someone, and it was like IM messages. It wasn't even like we're talking to each other. I'm like, this is
We're
first of
trying
all,
to get like receipts.
right. I was like, first of all, I'm not putting out no track record for people to pull up and be like, see, look what she wrote. You think the same? And I'm just like, well, I don't feel that way. Like, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but and I was just like, I don't know what you're trying to do, but and evident she did bring eventually bring that up in like a team meeting and was trying to insert me into her issues. And I was just like, girl, I did not say anything like that. Like, that's your problem. Like, that's between you guys. Like, you guys need to figure that out. So like definitely recognizing when someone's trying to pull you into the gossip and making you a part of it so that potentially they can use it against you. It's like, oh, you know.
What do you think, like, why do you think people gossip? Like, what is it about it that makes it so, I guess, interesting?
Um, I'll say from my own experience, because I'm not perfect. I've gossiped before, I'm not saying that I've never gossiped in my life. But I have learned from doing that because usually, and it's like you never, it's something like you don't have anything else to talk about. So you bring up other people's problems or what they're going through because of a lack of your own going ons. And that's not good at all. Just because you have nothing going on in your life does not give you the right to share anything else someone else has going on. And I haven't I haven't been in a situation where someone's like, "Have you been talking about me?" Because I always in the back of my mind have thought, how would this person feel if they heard something that I've shared about them with someone else? And I'm very careful about if I do, if sometimes your friend, you have mutual friends. So like sometimes your friend will bring up another friend and ask how they're doing. I obviously don't want to lie, but I also don't want to inform them of information that they may have not shared with them. So I always kind of lead with like, I'm not sure if I want to share more information with you next time you hang out with them. Definitely ask them how they're doing. Make it so that it's not your responsibility to share other people's information, but for them to kind of get the information themselves, especially if you're mutual friends. If you're mutual friends, like obviously you're going to catch up and find the information out yourself, but I try my best not to share details or information from one friend to another, especially if I know that they're not, on that level where they're, comfortable sharing that yet. But definitely it's like a lack of interest or a lack of happening in your own life, I feel like is a reason why most people do it.
And I think also it could be that they do have stuff going on in their life, but if someone has something a little bit more salacious going on, they kind of
Mm,
like maybe uh deflects like what's actually going on in their life.
That's what
mhm.
I was gonna say to like help them feel like they're maybe in a better
Better.
light or
Yeah.
like I don't know, their situation isn't yeah, put in the spotlight. Um maybe I don't know if this applies to gossip necessarily, but yesterday my coworkers and I were talking about like recent celebrity deaths and you have a lot of questions, but my coworker was saying, no, like information brings you comfort. So like potentially it's like, okay, I'm seeking additional information on the subject that doesn't make sense to me. And like
Hmm.
I'm talking about this individual rather than asking them directly to see if you have information that can kind of like finish this puzzle for me without me having to like talk to the person.
No,
Yeah,
it's good.
I think that's a valid point too. That is another reason. And I think you who said it? I think you said it, Janie. Really, I think what makes it gossip is the intention behind it,
Hmm.
right? So I feel like you can be, and I could be wrong, so please feel free to correct me. I feel like you can be curious about something. That's okay, right? We're curious by nature. But if you're curious because you want to be in someone's business, or you want to be nosy, or like you want to go and spread that to someone else, maybe that's what makes it gossip versus just wanting information.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Because I do think intention is, most gossip, all gossip, I think because gossip is negative, I that leads me to believe that in order for it to be gossip, there's a negative intention behind it.
Now I want to look up the actual definition of gossip because I'm always so curious, like, what is the true meaning,
For
or how do
sure.
because we obviously think of it as a negative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and then that's because of what the word says about it, Of
yes.
like we're told not to gossip, so we wouldn't be told not to do something that's like good, right? And
Yeah.
every like the things that I've pulled up, just scriptures that reference it, it's like Proverbs 17:4 says wrongdoers are eagerly listen to gossip, liars pay close attention to slander. Proverbs 26:20, fire goes out without wood and quarrels disappear when gossip stops. Proverbs 16:28, a troublemaker plants seeds of strife, gossip separates the best of friends. Proverbs 20:19, a gossip goes around telling secrets, so don't hang around with characters. And I mean, there's tons. I could keep going, but I'm
For
not going
sure.
to them. A lot of them in Proverbs,
Mm-hmm.
Book of Wisdom. So that's why for me it has the negative connotation, because of what the word says. But did you find the definition?
Um, well, just as casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true, which is just like that is what gossip is, but the word tells us it's not a good thing to participate in.
Yeah. Because it does breed mistrust in the church community and people don't feel safe. And it brings a bigger picture to how people, live their Christian lives and how they relate to each other, and a big part of going to church is the people that you are in contact with and have community with that support you. And if that trust is broken, then, not always, but the person, if they don't have a strong connection with the church or with God, that can be a big factor in if they decide to stay or not. And you never want to be someone's stumbling block or cause someone to fall. And that, sharing of gossip can be just one of those actions that may cause that to happen. So I think that's
Yeah.
the Bible really wants us to, stay away from that.
Well, and then when we use like Christian or biblical associated words like pray for them or bless their heart, and we're using it around people who don't have a strong understanding of the word, they might be like, oh, look at that person who claims to be Christian being praying for someone, but like doing it sarcastically, or,
Yeah.
you know, it's not setting a good example for who we actually are, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, what we want people to see.
And some people may be just naive to the notion of like what that actually means and can take that as an example of what they should do, and created another person that's doing the gossiping under the pretenses that they think it's biblical. Like, oh, I'm not
Exactly.
gossiping, I'm praying for them, so it's like you never want to make that a habit for someone else either, let your bad habit be your habit, let that be between you and God. But don't put that on someone else where they think it's okay to do either.
Because that falls under what you just said about not causing someone else to stumble and fall, right? And
Hmm.
that's why we talked about this before in previous podcast episodes, but like that's why there is actually a great responsibility that comes with being a believer, because once you are one, especially once you let other people know, and even if you don't let other people know, people are watching you just like we watch everyone, right? How you act, the things that you say, the things that you do, you know, when you do tell people that you're a believer, they shouldn't be like, oh, really?
Hmm.
I think Pastor talked about that in one sermon like a while ago, like, or Pastor Tony maybe, but they shouldn't be surprised. Your
Hmm.
actions should already show that. And if they are surprised, then you need to, reassess
Hmm.
what you're doing that could possibly not align with, the word and how we're supposed to represent ourselves.
Okay,
If we're Christians and people know that we're Christians and they see that we're gossiping,
Mhm.
then they, especially those that don't believe and don't know any better, then they see us, they're like, oh, well, she's a Christian and she gossiped, so it must be okay. And then they think that that's how we're supposed to be as Christians,
Right.
And in fact, that's the complete opposite.
Hmm.
So yeah, you don't want to build those habits um in anyone, really, believers or non-believers. But it's a little bit easier, I think, probably to build it in a non-believer because they don't know the difference, right?
Right.
At least that's the assumption.
Hmm.
Whereas, believers, we should have an idea. If you have read the word, then you should know a little bit more about it, if not a lot more about it. So, yeah, that sums that up.
Yeah. And it's important that we know that moving forward, how to combat these, areas of gossip where we may fall short.
So what I was just going to ask, like,
Oh, go
what
ahead.
tips do you have for getting out of that conversation?
Well, there's different levels to it, right? So you can excuse yourself. Okay. If you don't feel comfortable, like just flat out saying it, you can excuse yourself. You can try to change the subject. Although I've been in a situation where I've changed the subject and the person clearly really wanted to get this out because they
Mhm.
changed it right back. I was like, okay. Or you can just straight up be like, you know what? That doesn't have anything to do with me. Like, I don't feel comfortable talking about it. You know, that's their business. I don't know. Go ask them. Like,
That's good.
depends on your level of comfortability, but um, I think the key is just not to get involved. Because here's the thing, and I think that's why the Bible says don't hang around with
Mm.
those characters because you become who you hang around with. And it's so funny when I was younger, the whole birds of a feather flock together. I used to fight that phrase so much. And I was like, I'm my own person. Just because I can hang around with, I can have this type, friend who's doing this and this friend is doing this, and that won't affect me. But the older I get, I'm like, no, 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 you actually do. Like, you can't help it. It doesn't even have to be intentional, but like, if you're spending a lot of your time with someone, you probably will start to adapt characteristics from each other.
Hmm.
So if you're spending your time hanging around someone who gossips a lot, you're gonna probably get lured into the conversation, you know, and before you know it, now you're gossiping back with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the easiest thing would be just to remove yourself from the situation.
Hmm. You made a lot of great points. Like you hit everything on the head pretty much. Yeah, I had a whole article from this article from the church that pretty much hit on all those areas of how you can, remove yourself from being a part of the gossip. And some people can be very blunt about it and just kind of say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this conversation. Like, please change the subject, be very direct. And there's, other passive ways where you can kind of let people know, like, this is not something I want to be a part of, changing the subject, like you said. But the important thing is that you yourself are not indulging in gossip. You're not spreading gossip. You don't want to be the person responsible for sharing gossip. And communicating with people that are, that they should either, so it's not a continuous cycle of people talking about each other because at that point it's just like hearsay and nothing that people are saying is true anymore. And obviously you don't want to bring that into the church community, um, let alone your personal life. Can all that can have a hindrance on your personal relationship with God and the people that you trust and the people that support you.
Amen.
Amen. I would say, Corinne Cooley, do you have any feedback?
I've got nothing else.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, ladies, for being a part of this conversation about gossiping. Bless your heart, using gossip as a weapon for prayer or church support. We really wanted to hit home the idea of how we should support each other and love on each other as Christians, not only to people in our church community, but people outside of that, and to be very conscious of what you're saying and who you're saying it to, and build on your relationship with individuals so that they can learn to trust you and, trust the church moving forward. So, thank you all for being a part of this podcast. Any experience or feedback you guys would like to leave us, please put it in the comments below, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.